Hello folks, this is Ross Fleming speaking, Fleming Recordings Nelson, producers of the radio series Tales of the Kootenays. And we're up in Slocan City now. Some people like to call it Slocan now, but it always has been Slocan City with me, and I like the sound of it, and that's what I continue to name it. And we're at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Bert O'Neail in Slocan City. And we have with us Mr. O'Neill's mother, Mrs. D.B. O'Neail, and her brother, Mr. R.E. McMillan, and the good lady of that home, Mrs. R.E. McMillan, better known as Millen, so I'm told. So now we'll start off, I think, with our senior member, and that'll be Mrs. D.B. O'Neail. Miss O'Neail, where were you born?
I was born in Glengarry County, Ontario, township of Lochiel.
Well, now that sounds pretty natural. I should have my wife here because she was born in Van Cleek Hill, and she knew that district quite well. And when did you come to BC?
In 97.
In 97. And what month in 97?
The 24th of April.
24th of April. And you came along with your...
My father and my brother, Rod McMillan, and my sister, Winnie.
Oh, yes. And when did Mr. Rob, is this gentleman
This
here?
is Roddy, yes.
Roddy, oh yes,
Yes,
that
Roddy.
is the nickname. I didn't quite catch that.
His name is Roderick.
Roderick, oh yes.
He's known as Rod.
Oh yes,
Or
I
Roddy.
see. I see. Well, that's fine. And so you came with your parents, or your parents?
My
your
father and my
and your...
brother and sister. My
Brother and
other
sister.
brother was here ahead of us.
Oh, I see.
Neil McMillan.
Oh, I see.
He was here ahead.
I see.
And
what, you came, at what age would you have come?
I'd have to stop and think. I was
Well, now,
born-
by the way, do you mind saying when you were born?
I was born in 1875.
1875. Well, you're quite a youngster now, aren't you?
Yes.
And so that you were born in 75 and you came in 97. That's you were just about 12 years old then.
No, I was more.
20. 20.
Yes.
Yes, about 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Now, had you followed any occupation at that time? Did you come here as were you trained for any?
No, I was just trained as a home girl housekeeper.
I see. Well, we need that kind, you know. And so when were you married?
I was married first on the 15th of May, 1899.
1899.
To Robert Monroe Covington.
Oh yes. Uh-huh. And what was his occupation?
He was a mining engineer.
Mining engineer. You might speak towards this, the center.
Speak
see?
towards.
Mm-hmm. He was a mining engineer. And what mines did he work at in the Spokane?
Well, I couldn't tell you. He was in the Caswell district in Ainsworth, and
Oh,
at
yes.
least he examined properties there, and he examined properties here, and he was foreman or manager under George Aylard of New Denver
Oh yes, I see.
at the Enterprise
At the
mine.
Enterprise mine. I see. Mm-hmm. And that's on the way up to the Kokanee Park, isn't it?
Yes.
I came down from there one year after down to the Enterprise mine and up over into Springer Creek, down Springer Creek to Slocan City. So then you, what family did you have?
We had one girl. She was born on the 29th. We were married on the 15th of May, 1900, and our baby was born on the 29th of June, 1900, and her father died when she was 5 weeks old.
Is that a fact? Wow. Was there any particular reason for him dying?
Yes, he was poisoned with canned beans up 20 miles up Lemon Creek.
Well, that's unfortunate, but still, it's part of the history, isn't it?
Yes.
And that he should come to his end so suddenly that way.
Yes, he left me in the peak of health, and he was brought back.
Well, that is unfortunate.
And
Well-
the baby was just 5 weeks old.
Oh yes, that is a baby girl. And what is her name?
Roberta,
Roberta.
I called her after her dad. His
Oh,
name
yes.
was Robert Monroe, and I called her Roberta.
Oh yes, I see.
And she's Mrs. Walter Brown in Trail, and she's a widow
Oh yes,
and has 2 children,
I see.
a girl and a boy. They're both married,
Well, that's what we like to get on these programs, is get the connection.
She went to high school in Nelson.
Is that so?
Yes.
Hmm. Did you live in Nelson for a time?
No, I sent
see.
her. It was an awful heartbreaking business, but I
Yes.
had to send her away from home to go to. We had to send her, so we
Yes.
sent her to Nelson,
Yes, I see. Hmm.
and she went through high school there, and
Well,
then she
then-
went to Vancouver and took a Pittman course
Then you were married later to Mr. McMillan,
to Mr. O'Neail.
Mr. O'Neail, I should
Yes,
say.
on the 15th of April, 1903.
Hmm. Well, now I must just interject that.
And Mr. O'Neil was the bosom friend of my first husband.
Oh yes, is that so? Wow, that is very nice. to
Although
have that.
I didn't know him,
No, I see.
but just through conversation.
Yes, I see. Well,
But
that
they
is
were
very
bosom
nice to
friends.
have carry that relationship forward. And
And we had 2 sons.
oh yes,
Our first boy was born on the 12th of February, 1904, and he died on Christmas Day, 1939. Is that right?
wow.
This is our other son.
And now
He was born.
Bert was born when?
Pardon?
Bert was born when?
He was born on the 20th of March, 1908.
1908.
Yes,
Now what
just
is
4 years between the
what is
two
his
children.
proper name?
His proper name,
Yes.
Bertrand, Bertrand, Bertrand,
Oh yes.
Eugene
Yes.
McMillan
Yes.
O'Neil.
Good. Good. Oh, he's got to go one more to catch up to me.
Well, before he was baptized, my father said to me, he says, I'd like you to call him John or Duncan or Angus.
Oh yes.
And I couldn't say that I was keen on any of them.
I see.
So I said, well, Pa, I said, how about McMillan? That's just fine.
I see.
That way.
Well, that's very good. That's carrying on the family tradition. Well, now, how did you find the condition when you came to Slocan City? How did your family come to choose Slocan City in the
Well,
beginning?
Because my mother died in Calgary the year before, 1896. 1896. And my father was very upset. And my oldest brother, Neil, was in this part of the world.
Oh yes, I see.
In fact, he was between Slocan City and Sandon.
Yes, I see.
And my father's aim and ambition was to get us together.
Get the family together.
Yes.
Yes. Well,
Well, that's how we happened to come
that
to here.
personalities came into the
Yes.
question, and that's very good to find out these things.
And my brother Neil, of course, he chose Slocan City for us. He chose
Oh yes.
the Slocan.
Hmm.
which we
And
were
well,
coming.
it's a very nice spot, and I'm sure that you think it's as nice as ever it was.
Yes, yes.
It's home, and it's.
I like the old place.
Hmm.
I like my little home. I do like the place, yes.
And how did the place come up to your expectations, or did you have any expectations at that
Well,
time?
I was too young to care much. I
Yes.
had the interest of my father at heart, and
Yes.
to keep house for
Yes,
him
I see.
and the two children, this one and my sister.
Yes.
My sister was just a little bit of a thing,
Yes, I see.
and they were both going to school when we came.
Yes.
And
Well, maybe we ought to just speak for a minute about Mr. McMillan here. Rod, of course, you were. What year were you born, and where?
1882.
1882.
Glengarry County, Ontario.
Glengarry County, too, eh?
Yes.
And of course, you came with your father and the rest of the family.
Yes.
And you've.
We came west and landed in Calgary
Oh, you came to.
in 89.
that I missed that out, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yes, we landed in Calgary in 1889.
Oh yes, well that's fine. And that was at that time called the Wild and Woolly West.
That's right.
And-
Calgary was of a population at that time of 5,000, so they said.
Yes, yes, it was a growing concern at that time. And then you came farther west. And what have you occupied yourself with since coming to Slocan City after you became of age?
Well, mining and teaming.
Mining and teaming.
Yes.
I see. Uh-huh.
First of all, you
Eh?
were in Nelson first.
I was in Nelson for a long time. I put in, well, let me see, 3 years with the,
Green.
Green the surveyor?
yes.
Oh yes.
I was head trainer there for FC Green.
Oh yes, I see.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And I worked under FC Green as his regular picket man,
Oh yes.
but I started out with AH Green.
Age,
And Burton.
yes. Oh yes, Green and Burton, yes.
My first job was with Burton up at on the
Kootenai Lake?
Kootenai Lake. Yes.
That Oscar Burton, was it? Was that Oscar Burton? Was that his name?
Well, really, I don't know.
No, there was an old-timer Oscar Burton at
He was a
around
young man.
Pilot Bay.
He was a young man.
Yeah, he would be at that time, yes.
He went from Nelson to Prince George
Oh yeah.
as a government man.
Yeah, I doubt whether it'd be the same man.
Yeah.
But well, that's fine. So now you were, of course, sometimes you came around to going to the other cities and so on like that. What did you do for entertainment?
Oh, we used to have a lot of entertainment here, really. And
And-
I think I went on an average to 3 dances a week.
3 dances a week.
Yes.
You were a going concern, weren't you?
Well, I
you're
see
there
my
there for
brother-
punishment.
My brother played the violin.
Oh yes, I see.
And that, of course, as a rule, we all went together,
Yes,
the
I
4
see.
of us.
Oh yes.
My,
Well-
my sister, my 2 brothers, myself.
There wasn't a great deal else to do, was there?
No. Oh, we
those
used
days.
to have some concerts. We used to.
Yes, concerts and so on.
And
like that.
I was in the choir in the Presbyterian church,
Oh yes.
and we used to have some little plays and.
Hmm. And
To
you
do- to do
also
with
would
the church,
take
you know.
trips up into the mountains, I suppose, for.
Oh,
Would you?
I used to go up in the hills with my husband
Hmm.
every summer after the children were big enough. Well, in fact, I went when the little girl was about 4 and Melville was just a tiny baby. That's
Mhm.
the boy we lost.
Yes. Did you ever go to the larger cities for?
I've been out to Spokane,
Oh yes.
not very old,
Mhm.
twice maybe. We used to go to the fair from here.
Oh yes. The
That was a great thing to go
old
to
Apple
the,
Fair.
to the Spokane Fair. The
Yes.
people used to go from
Yes,
here.
that was quite an
I
affair.
think I went a couple of times.
Yes.
But for dental work or anything like that, we went to Nelson,
Oh
or
yes.
did without.
And I believe you attended some dances in Nelson too, didn't you?
Just that one.
Just one dance.
That
Well,
one dance.
tell us about that dance.
Well, you mean the?
I don't know anything about it.
Well, all I know is that my husband, Mr. Covington, and I led the Grand March on the 24th of May, '97.
97, I see.
But I don't know the building.
I
And
see.
I think my husband and myself and a chaperone, and
Oh, yes.
Mrs. Colpitts.
Oh, yes.
We called her Auntie Colpitts. And he went down to take part in the sports.
Was Rod.
Yes.
Rod went down with you
Yes,
to take part in the sports.
sports.
I see.
And I think we stayed at the Strathcona Hotel. I wouldn't
I
be
see.
sure, but I think so.
Well, very likely you did, and very likely, well, of course it was the Phair Hotel at that time.
The Fair, yes.
Pop Phair.
That's right, it was the Fair.
The Phair Hotel, yes. It was
Uh-huh.
later, when the CPR took an interest in it, they called it, called it the Strathcona.
Yes.
But it used to be the Phair Hotel. I used to work there
Mhm.
for Pop Phair, and when Jock Gibson was the clerk.
I see.
And so I know the hotel, knew the people. And they had a very large dining room,
Well, it might
quite
have been there.
quite a large dining room. And I know I played dances in that room, and very likely that's where you had your dance.
Yes.
And that's very interesting that you would come down from Slocan City and lead off the
Yes.
parade in the.
Of course, I don't really know who asked us to lead off the Grand March, but
Oh, yes.
we were asked to.
Well,
to
that
lead
is,
it.
I think that is very very nice.
The
Ni-
fact
nice.
of the matter is, I had forgotten all about it till just here lately.
Let's see,
I was speaking to Pat Morris in Trail. I don't know whether you know him or not.
maybe so.
And he wanted me to write a history
Oh yes,
of the Slocan.
Slocan. I wish you would too.
And he's expecting I will do it.
Yes.
So
Well, that would make two
it was
expecting you
then.
to do
It
it.
was then I remembered that I had led, that we had led the Grand March at this dance.
Of course, Slocan City was quite a going concern of its own at that time, wasn't it?
Yes.
There was quite a settlement here, and a lot of entertainment.
5,500.
Mostly,
5,500, eh?
there
I
was,
don't think very many people imagine that, realize that it'd have that
If you were
population.
here and seen the people, you'd think so.
Yes. Oh, I'm not doubting it by any means.
it was tents mostly.
Tents,
you know.
yes,
Of course, there were the hotels
floating
built.
population.
There were a lot of hotels built
yes,
in
When
the
you
early
see
days.
what-
There were
When you see 3-day celebration,
yes,
that's going some.
yes, it is.
In a little place like this,
Yes,
horse racing,
Ho-
everything.
yes, everything.
well, that was it. On the 4th of July or the 1st of July '97, they ran it in to the 4th,
Oh, yes.
and it was
Yes.
raining. And
Yes.
the celebration ran from the 1st of July through the 4th,
Yes.
and wound up, I think, the 5th, if I remember.
As a
right.
matter of fact, it wouldn't be a celebration unless at that time, unless it included the 4th, because
no.
there were so many Americans
Oh,
here,
yes, there were an
and
awful
they,
lot.
as a matter of fact, they were inclined to celebrate the 4th, irrespective of the 1st
Sure.
of the Dominion Day.
Oh yes, they always expected to.
So I can readily see where they continued the celebration, and
it ran into it wound up the 5th.
yes, and I suppose there'd be some pretty big money
Big money.
posted.
Everything was big money.
Yes,
Yeah.
the big money posted for prizes and so on like that.
There was, and
Yeah,
there was
horse
horses
racing.
represented here from Portland, Oregon, Spokane,
Is that so?
and Seattle.
Is that so?
And then Silverton had 2 horse. Slocan here had 3.
Well,
Yeah.
I see. And well, that's
I
very-
jockeyed in here for a while.
Is that so?
Yes.
I see. Well, you'd be a rather heavy jockey right now. wouldn't
Yes,
you?
I'll say so. That's why I was jockeying, because I was about the right weight.
About the right weight, eh?
Yeah.
I see. Well proportioned, but right weight. Well, that is fine. Well, that means that there were quite a number of quite a large number of people that would come in for these affairs
yes,
too,
there
wouldn't
there were a lot come in.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know what year, she might remember what year the big passenger came in here for our celebration from Nelson, Ross and Trail.
Oh, yes.
All through there was somewhere around 1,500 people came in on that
Well,
train.
that was the day the first train come in.
No. It was a while afterwards,
I see.
about the third celebration we had.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
When did the celebration? When did the first train come in?
97.
97.
Oh, yes.
September 97.
Oh, yes.
And of course there were a lot of people up from Nelson for that.
Uh-huh. Well, now, Bert, I think it's about time we brought you into this discussion. Oh, well, we'll get him again.
We had
Right.
a lot of churches here at that time.
Oh,
There
yes.
was there was a Presbyterian church,
Mhm.
well then there was a Methodist church,
Oh, yes.
and a Catholic church, and then later the Anglican church.
Oh, yes. I see.
But they've all pretty well gone, except the Anglican and the Presbyterian.
Oh, yes. Now,
Mr. and Mrs. McMillan had rather an interesting wedding, too, that you could mention that, Margaret.
yes, well, now I think it's about time that we brought Mrs. McMillan into this picture. She's been, I don't know whether, I think a little bit of it has been picked up of some of her asides, but nevertheless, we would like to get a little, some sidelights from you. That's the reason why we have this group here, so that one can remind the other of certain things. And thanks very much, Hazel, for making this suggestion. Now, what can you tell us about?
I forgot about that.
What can you tell us about that, Miss McMillan? Come on.
Stuck.
Are you stuck? Can't get started? Well, just say it in your own words.
Well, we were married on the Slocan steamer.
On the Slocan, on the steamer Slocan.
Slocan.
Oh, yes.
On the 9th of September 1916,
Oh, yes.
between Roseberry and New Denver.
Between Roseberry and New Denver.
Reverend,
I
yes,
was on that
by
one.
Reverend Mr. Bain,
Reverend Mr. Bain.
the Presbyterian minister.
He was the Presbyterian minister stationed here, was he?
No, in New Denver.
In New Denver.
Stationed in New Denver.
Oh, yes, I see. And, well, that was a little bit out of the ordinary. What, there must have been other features about it.
Well, I came west from St. Andrew Prescott,
Oh, yes.
about 11 miles from Banklick Hill.
Oh, well.
When you spoke about your wife being from Banklick Hill, I thought, well, the world is small after all.
Yes, she should be here with me.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
well,
yes.
we'll see that you meet
Yes,
again sometime.
uh-huh.
Well, that is fine. Well, were there any, that must have caused a little excitement at the time, a little celebration on the boat?
Well, our witness at our marriage was Mr. Dan McLeod, the engineer,
Oh, yes.
and Captain Reed, the
Yeah, captain of the boat.
Yes, they were both our witnesses.
Well,
They witnessed our wedding.
I see. And did you have
And
a,
like-
Come
Oh,
on, you're
I
as bad as I am.
did you have a dance and so on
Well-
to finish up?
And Roddy's father was at our wedding,
Oh, yes.
and Mrs. O'Neill's daughter, Roberta,
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes,
and Alec McMillan
I see.
from Sandon.
I see.
Our first cousin.
Your first cousin. I
Uh-huh.
see.
And Mr. and Mrs. Gage, and Beth Gage,
Oh, yes.
and Mr. Ellison,
Mm-hmm.
and Walter Clough.
Oh, yes.
Let's see who else.
These are all officers of the steamer
They,
Slocan.
they were
Oh,
they were
that's
in
all.
the, they were in the dining room when we were married.
Oh, I
Yes,
see.
we were married in the dining room.
Uh-huh. Well, that must have been quite an occasion.
Let's see who else. Oh yes, and the cook, the Chinaman.
Oh, yeah,
I
you
can't
mustn't
remember
forget that
his
part.
name. No. Do you know his name?
Now,
Yeah, of course.
That
We
was
were married.
Rosie, wasn't
Pardon?
Oh, don't ask me.
it? He was on the
Yes, he was on for quite a long
Rosie.
time.
now, as
My
a
gosh, that's right, Rosie.
as a principal in this affair, now haven't you some recollections, Rod, about this affair? Wasn't there something extraordinary that you can remember about it? Besides
Well,
meeting
yes.
such a
I
beautiful bride?
We spent our honeymoon up at Dayton Creek,
Oh, yes.
up at the claims at Dayton Creek.
And where is Dayton Creek?
In Slocan City.
Oh, I see.
Slocan City. And let's see, what's going on right now there?
There's the big mine strike up on the same country
Oh,
now.
I see. Is that where you're expecting to have a resurgence of the boom?
That's
Yes,
right.
that's right.
Of early days.
Yes, that's
There's
where
no,
we
there's
spent.
no joke about it either.
No joke about it, eh?
No.
Well, that's where Rod McMillan and Mrs. McMillan spent their
Oh, is that so?
honeymoon.
Well,
And then
that's
we
very
came
good.
back down to Slocan City
Uh-huh.
in a snowstorm,
Oh, yes.
and they had a dance for us.
I see.
And from there, after the dance, we went home to Sandon.
I see.
We had lived in Sandon for a year.
Oh, you lived in Sandon for a year.
Yes. And then we were at Almo for 6 months.
Did you know DJ Robertson in Sandon?
Yes, I
You did?
No, I
Oh,
didn't.
He came
I
from...
met-
I used to go and visit him in Nelson.
Oh, that's all. Yes. Well, he came from Regina, you know.
Fine old man.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He came from Regina, and our families knew one another very well there. And when they were having correspondence previous to when we came out, and it was just a toss-up where we would land when we came to this part of the country. But my father chose Nelson, but DJ had quite a bit of information to offer in regard to the different places. Now we'll come back to you again. Now you'll be thinking about some little episodes that will be interesting.
I'm just waiting.
Oh, you are, eh? Well, go ahead. You tell us now anything that's on your mind.
On the survey, when I went to work for the Green Brothers in Burton, it's coming to me. We surveyed around Nelson, all of where the road is today, up to the bridge.
Oh, yes.
All that part.
The Granite-
What they used
Granite
to
Road.
call that?
The Granite
Granite
Road?
Road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we went from that, and we surveyed all of up at Willow.
Willow Point?
Yes, all that country there, and then we surveyed up at Crawford Bay
Oh, yes.
and around Pilot Bay.
Mhm.
And then I was working at that time up around there with Burton.
Oh, yes.
He was the first man, and then eventually I went with F.C. Green, the head man.
Oh, yes.
And then after we got through with the surveying around Nelson, we went over into the Irish Lakes. And we were on the Irish Lakes. I stayed with it until July. I got sort of fed up on it and quit. And I went back into the mining.
Oh, yes.
Went back to Sandon, to the Queen Bess mine.
Oh, yes.
And I worked at the Queen Bess mine for pretty near 4 years for my brother and my cousin McGilvery.
Oh, yes.
And that's when I took up the, I don't know what year exactly, but I think it was 12, that McGilvery and I drilled in Nelson.
Well,
We drilled and won the championship from Erickson and Johnson.
is that so? Well, you did something when you did that.
Yeah, and we were never beaten.
Is that so?
Yeah, we put in 43 and 5/16
Is that so?
Yeah. in that new rock in Nelson.
And in what time is that now? Just
In
for
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
I see. Well, of course, you couldn't find the men that could do that nowadays, could you? They're not. They're not trained, of course, to that.
No, they take a lot of training, and
Yes, it would
I
take.
wouldn't advise them to go after it.
No.
It's a
Well,
tough-
you'd know Jim Fowles too, I
Oh,
suppose.
we beat them that day.
Yes, you beat them that day.
That day.
Yes, I know that he and his brother.
Jim Fowles and Judd Fowles.
Yes.
Yeah.
He and his brother used to do a lot of.
That's right.
Yes,
And
that
we,
was.
and we beat Big Ross, Bill Ross,
Oh yes.
and his little partner. It was a very shameful thing for a man like Ross picking up a partner like he did.
Oh yes.
He might as well have gone and picked up a 12-year-old kid.
Oh yes. I see.
Yeah.
Well, it's
The poor big man, he certainly was a wonderful man. That man, I don't think any of us could do it, but he stood up there and went through that pace, and he never shut his mouth. So he had lots of
well, lots of
steam.
steam. I see.
Yeah. But then,
Well, just before we pass the rock drilling, that was a big feature and big money in that too, wasn't there, in those times?
it
Fairly
was
big money.
fairly big money, but not just about half what should be
Yes, I suppose so.
for what you had to go through.
What was the prize about that time? Was it $300?
$125 was my share.
$150.
$250.
$250.
And then
I
there was
see.
$2.50 of that you paid for entry fee.
Well, there was certainly a lot of hard work
Oh,
and training
that's what
behind it.
That's what I say. It wasn't half paid.
Of course, you men were doing a certain amount of that in your everyday occupation, I
Yes,
suppose.
but that didn't help you
No,
a bit on that when you get out striking 64 blows to the minute
Yes,
with an 8-pound hammer. You're traveling.
yes, you sure are.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. Thanks very much for that information. That's
I never run across these men that drilled over in Weimar country,
mhm.
but I understand that my partner had delivered. He had a set of steel. I'm not sure that they got it,
Mhm.
but I believe they did.
Mhm.
He sent to England for a set of steel, purpose for drilling.
I see.
They were what they call the stainless steel.
Is that so?
Yes, already turned.
Mhm. Well, Sonny Burgess was of course,
He was
that
one of
likely
the-
afterwards.
He was one of the Weimar men.
Yes, one of the Weimar men.
I never met him.
Never met him, yes. Well, he would be a few years after your...
Oh, long time after.
Yes, yes.
Long time. They came in. Do you remember the year that they came in? They thought they'd try out, instead of having the drilling match, they had the machines, the big 400-pound machines.
I believe I do remember
They
the start of that.
were ruination to the celebration.
Yes, they didn't. There was no interest in that.
No.
Now, by the way, one of those drilling contests was in that plot of ground right opposite the Tremont Hotel. And some others were down on the ball grounds. Can you remember where yours were?
Oh, sure, down on the main ground now.
On the recreation grounds?
Yes.
Yes.
They got that new rock in from Cobalt.
I see.
The other rock that was before that, somebody had went through it,
Oh, I see.
drilled through it.
Oh, yes.
And they sent for that,
Harder rock.
there was some kick coming on uneven rock,
Oh, yes.
uneven grain.
I see.
And they sent to Cobalt. And
Cobalt, Ontario.
Yes.
Well.
And they got that Cobalt granite
Well,
into Nelson.
I see.
I forget now what length it was, but it was cut out about this square.
Yes. Yes.
Beautiful rock.
Yes. Yes, I remember those. Well, now, you used to do some foot racing too, did you?
Oh, I done a little bit, yes.
I see. Did you, which end of the line did you come in on?
Well, I done pretty well.
You did pretty well.
Yes.
I see.
My first experience was right here in Slocan City.
I see.
That is after I entered the men's races
I
from
see.
the junior.
I see.
The men's, there didn't seem to be much junior race, and you had to be old enough and to get into the men.
Oh, I see.
Well, then there was quite a few foot racers in here that time. I got beat that day,
I see.
but I got beat by a man named Gusty from Sandon.
Oh, yes.
And, well, he was a regular athlete.
Yes. Was
But
Gusty his...
I don't say that I could beat everybody, but for a man that was working every day,
Yes. Was Gusty a nickname for him, or was that his last name?
well, I never heard
No, that
any
was
other
his
name.
name.
That is his name, eh?
I think so.
I
He was
see.
a butcher.
Who else would
But-
be racing? Would Bert Dill or some of those?
Too good.
Too
You
Good?
you heard of Too Good?
Yes.
You had him in Nelson.
Yes. Yes.
And Too Good.
That's the
and-
father of the Jerry Too Good that's in
That's-
Nelson now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Billy Hicks that used to be here.
Surtees. Surtees.
Oh.
Surtees.
Oh, Surtees. Oh, yeah.
Surtees Too
Yeah.
Good.
You
Yeah.
forgot
Oh,
Tom
yes.
Henderson.
Eh?
You forgot Tom Henderson, the station agent.
Oh, Tom Henderson,
Oh, yes.
the operator.
Mm-hmm.
I run up against about, I think about 6 of them hard nuts
Yeah, that's
that
all.
day.
I see.
Yes.
Oh, they took it pretty seriously those days, didn't
I
they?
didn't know what I was. Well, I kind of knew what I was up against, all right.
Mhm.
But we were down here on the main street, and we started in on the running high jump.
Oh, yes.
That was the first. I took that
I see.
overall,
I see.
and then they wanted me afterwards asked me if I would give an exhibition jump.
Oh, yes.
Well, I told them to, they set it up to 5'8",
Oh, yes.
and I cleared it, and that was all.
Oh, I see. Well,
So I don't think I would have made any more.
I see. Well,
No.
how about hose reel races? Did you?
They didn't have it here.
Didn't have it here.
Well, they didn't have no...
They had it in New Denver, I believe. I believe
Well,
they used to have some hose reel
Yes,
teams
they
there.
did. Yes. But I was never in them.
No, I see.
I ran in Sandon.
Hmm.
I don't know what year it was, but I ran in Sandon one year.
On a hose reel?
Yes.
I believe I have a photograph of that race.
Is that so?
Mhm.
The only time that I was ever in a hose reel up there, although I seen Nelson.
Yes, I
Yeah.
see. Uh-huh.
I was standing right in Baker Street when Nelson ran, but I can't remember who they ran against at that time.
Yeah.
I think there was 2 or 3 teams in.
Oh yes, there were. That was quite a prominent part
That's
of the.
right. It was nice.
Yeah, they had the hub and hub
That's right.
hose reel race, and then they had the wet test,
Yes, that's right.
where they would run their allotted length of line and get the water on.
Yeah.
Sometimes they missed it,
Bert
and sometimes they didn't.
Sanderson of Sandon was the head man up there.
Oh yes.
When you mentioned about the water, that put me in mind. He was the man that was looking after that.
Mhm. Now, is there any other line of sport or activity that you used to take in that was prominent
Well,
in those days?
until I got too heavy, I done quite a bit of riding.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
But
I see.
I didn't think it was worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
When I was on the prairie, I had 3 saddle horses.
Yes, I see. You're
You can tell that
training.
on my
He
on
made
I was-
himself bow leg.
Oh, that's so. I didn't. I didn't notice that.
I certainly was on a horse all the time.
Is that so?
Yes.
Oh, that's fine.
Yes. You take in Calgary when I was, I don't know what age I'd be exactly, but during the holidays, we always kept cattle in Calgary for milk.
Oh yes.
And one time we had 6 cows there. Well, during the holidays, I could go with the other men and the town herd and go out with the cattle. You see, it wouldn't cost nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked after that part of it, our own interests.
Yes. I see.
So then,
You got well accustomed to the saddle.
oh yes,
You're at home on
my
the saddle.
first saddle I got, the first pony I got cost, mother bought it for $6.
Is that so?
Nice little saddle horse.
Is that a fact?
Only he was lazy.
I see.
But I only had it a day or so. I just forget the time when I went down visiting to the Eau Claire sawmills when a big Norwegian boy, he was way older than me, he was a partly man, he asked me for a ride.
Oh yeah.
Well, of course, I wouldn't let him have my pony.
No.
And he picked up a rock and gave it to me in the head. Well, it pretty near finished me.
I should say it would.
Yes, pretty near finished me. I had that night they rushed me to 2 doctors.
Is that a fact?
Yeah.
Well, now you think
that on the tape.
you
But you don't want that on the tape.
you think of some
Will be though.
Well, let it go.
you think of some other things that'd be of interest while we come around to Bertram here. We're a long time getting around to you, but you know, Bert, there's a few years gone by since we started this story, and until you made your appearance on the scene. Now, when and where were you born?
I was born in Nelson, 1908, March the 20th.
1908. I see. You went to Nelson because of the
There was no-
hospital
I
facilities.
imagine.
Yes, I see.
I don't remember.
No, you don't. You don't remember that. You hadn't any choice in the matter, as
No.
far as that's concerned. Was he a good baby, Miss O'Neil?
Yes.
Was he a good baby?
Yes, he was a good baby, and he was a great big baby.
He was, eh?
Yes, he
Well.
certainly was.
Uh-huh. Well, he's still a very good size, isn't he? And well, now in the early days, what do you remember of the early days? And
I can't remember such a great deal. I think the celebrations that Rod was speaking of, what I remember of them was the tail end. It was they were getting small then.
Mhm.
And I can remember when some of the mines were operating here, and the 4-horse teams were hauling ore from the mines.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the old-timers that I hear their names mentioned, well, I don't know whether I remember them or whether I've heard their name mentioned so many times that
Yes.
I think I do.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, now, I believe you have an interesting letter that your father sent back after when he reached Slocan City on his the first time.
Yes.
Could you read this letter? I think it'd be quite interesting. Give the date and so on.
Slocan City, May the 16th, 1897. Dear friends at home. We struck this town Friday night, leaving Roslyn Thursday afternoon. We have had some lovely boat rides. The scenery is beautiful. It would be more beautiful if we could live on it. We took the C&W from Roslyn to Trail. Taking the steamer there, we went up the lower Arrow Lakes to Nakusp. There, the CPR to Roseberry. Here we had to shoulder our trunks for about a quarter of a mile to a little bit of a tug, which is about 18 or 20 feet long and about 6 feet wide. We got into this town about 5 o'clock Friday evening. Roslyn is full of people, and all the work there is corporation work. The wages are very good, being $3 a day, but it was almost impossible to get on. We met George Fraser there, a druggist, and one of the city council. He comes from Woodstock and is married to one of the Farrell daughters. Roslyn is composed of brokers' offices, about 50, hotels, about 40, and a few stores. There is nothing but hard work there, and even that is very hard to get. I think Slocan City will be all okay. The CPR is building a large steamer at Roseberry to... Some of this is difficult to read.
It's faded out.
Yes.
It's been folded now.
I'll miss that part. And in about a week, they are going to start a railway between here and Nelson. There is an awful lot of building going on here. Lumber cannot be had fast enough to supply the demand. To make money here, and make it easily, a man has to have from $500 to $800. Then strike a town ahead of the boom and buy real estate. Property in this town about a year ago was worth about $50 a lot. The same are selling now for about $500. We are pretty sure of a job painting in the morning. $3.50 a day will not be so bad if we can hold it. We have a shack and do our own cooking. Wouldn't you like some? But we are living pretty well and very cheap. They are starting a lacrosse team here, and if we stay this summer, I'm going to play. I am sure of a place on the team, and it will be worth something here after a while, I think. How are all the folk around and in Paris? How are the children and Grandma? Tell Harry when he goes on the river to thank Maggie and Patty for the book and cutouts, and tell Patty I will write to him soon. We have far too much stuff with us. All we want here is about one change of underclothing. However, if we get broke, we can sell some of it, I suppose. We are going to have a big day on the 24th. Football, baseball, and lacrosse. And lacrosse matches, and the devil to pay at night, I suppose. Well, I think I had better close now, as it is getting near church time. Maybe I will try and write a letter next time. Remember me to all who may be foolish enough to inquire. We will likely stay here for a couple of weeks yet, so address all letters, checks and so forth to D.B. O'Neail, Slocan City.
Particularly the checks, eh?
Yes.
I'm not sure whether we got the date on that.
May
that
the
was written.
16th, 1897.
1897.
Notice that he said he was going to stay for 2 weeks,
Oh, yes.
perhaps.
And
Well,
he stayed
he's-
for about 60 years.
Oh.
Well, I think that's
56 years.
56 years. Well, that's. I think that's usually quite the thing. Have you any idea of the name of the tug that you come up on?
Did he went up the river
Yes.
on? Oh, I know the boat he come down from Roseberry on.
Oh, yes.
That was the Myrtle B, was it? No, not the Myrtle B. What was it now? Don't be funny. It wasn't the William Hunter. It was
But he
the
doesn't remember,
other
is
one.
it?
Denver.
The Little Denver.
The Little Denver. Little Denver, eh?
Yeah.
I
And
see.
it was little.
Yes.
The Little Denver.
According to that. Well, that's. I haven't run against that name before.
She better tell what happened, how we left Roseberry and came to New Denver. We got off there
Mhm.
on account of afraid to come any further.
Oh,
They had so much on the little boat that there,
oh
was,
yes.
that there was only about that much from the top of the water.
Oh yes.
You'll understand.
Yes, only 6, about 6 more inches, and you would have been
3 inches more and it'd be,
washing water, eh?
yes.
Is that so?
That's why
Well-
we stayed off in New Denver for a while. I forget how long.
Excuse me now, just a minute. But we had a cousin running a hotel in New Denver. There were two of them, Black and McLennan. And McLennan insisted we stay over with them. He said we'd never get to Slocan City if we went on that tug.
Oh yes.
So we
Okay.
stayed for a week.
I see. Well,
New
that's.
Denver.
Uh-huh. Well, I noticed in another story where one of these boats was loaded so much that it turned completely over.
You did.
Well, that's the Hunter.
That's the Hunter, eh? Yes, I
That's
see.
the one we eventually did come down on.
I
It
see.
was on the Hunter.
Uh-huh. Well, that's. And at that time, what was the direction of that trade? Of course, I know that about that time there was so much activity up here that the people of Nelson, and I think it was headed by Dr. E.C. Arthur, were quite concerned about diverting the trade of the Slocan to Nelson instead of it going up to Revelstoke and to other points.
That's quite right.
And so there was that concern in the
Oh,
early
yes.
days.
Yes, there
Mhm.
was.
And I believe that the people around Nelson, they didn't do a wonderful job on it, but they spent a fair amount of money making a trail up the Slocan in order to facilitate that kind of trade.
Yes.
Well, they traveled on the old Caribou Trail up until
Was that so?
yes, to Lemon Creek.
Oh yes. The Caribou Trail,
Oh yes, it came right through to Lemon Creek.
and now where would the Caribou Trail start then?
Not very far from where this bridge of this highway goes across.
Is that so?
A little higher up the creek.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I see. Well, now that's news to me.
Then they when the train they got the railroad partly built to up the valley, you know, they were bringing the supplies up to Lemon Creek,
Oh yes.
and they had a boat on from Slocan City to Lemon Creek called the Myrtle B,
Oh yes.
and they carried the freight from Lemon Creek to Slocan City by Myrtle B.
Oh yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, now, Bert, one of the reasons why I wanted you here particularly was that there might be some questions that you'd like to ask your mother or uncle about some of the early days. Is there anything that comes into your mind that you would like to know a little more about?
I can't think of anything.
Can't you think of anything at the moment? Well, I'll give you a chance to think about it. And now, Hazel, of course, I know a little more about your history than you care to. wish I didn't. You know, and of course, it's nothing very much to your detriment. But you know, when you were living on Cottonwood Street in Nelson there, were you born in that little house in the corner of 3rd and Cottonwood Street?
No, I guess we were living up at Anderson Creek at that time, where
Oh, yes.
the Hampshire gravel.
Oh, I see. Well, maybe you came down there when you were...
I remember living
little
there
bit,
when
yes.
I was small.
I see. Well, I don't know. For some reason or another, you made yourself heard about that time. So, it was my pleasure to be serving your parents with groceries, and of course, I heard Hazel's voice every once in a while. So now you...
I remember being very annoyed at you one time in
Oh,
the
is that so?
store. I had a magnificent sum of 5 cents to do as I pleased with,
I see.
and I loved licorice. But you let me buy one of those medicinal licorice sticks, which are not edible.
Oh, I see. That's all.
And I didn't forgive you for a long time.
Oh, you didn't. Well,
5
no.
cents was a lot of money then.
Oh, yes, it
No.
was, I should say. And, Hazel was a very good citizen and became a pedagogue, a school teacher, and I suppose, is that how you met Mr. O'Neail?
That's right.
And where were you then?
I was out at Brilliant then, up to Shinya,
Oh,
where
I
the
see.
present airport is.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh. And
He was teaching at Drums at that
Thrums.
time.
Oh, yes, I see. Well, that's fine. And now you have 2 boys,
That's right.
pretty good sized boys too, aren't they?
Yes, they
What-
dwarf me considerably.
What are their names?
Terry is the oldest. He's 21, and Danny is 20.
And Danny's 20. Which one is this, Danny?
This is Danny, and he's 6'3".
Danny, you better say hello to the folks.
Hello.
That's short but sweet. And, well, now, is there anything else that anybody can think of that would be interesting? I think we've had a very nice recording, and I want to thank you all for for the information that you've imparted today. And I think you have brought out quite a few points that have not been covered by anybody else. It'll be very interesting.